Hey, you guys, welcome to the readings for the week of the 23rd to the 29th of July, where we kick off the week with Venus going retrograde on Sunday. We kick off the week with the sun going into Leo on Sunday, and Venus is going retrograde in Leo. It's all happening in Leo this week. Sending love, Leo, sending love. I got a fresh cup of coffee. So I'm prepared for all the stuff. So let's delve in here, see everybody's affected. We'll just put it this way. Everybody is affected by a retrograde planet, regardless of whether it's in your sign or interacting with planets that are in your sign. Some people are just more affected than others. And that's what we're going to delve into today. So we're going to get started with Darcy, like we always do, in Taurus. So will you be affected? Duh, it's your ruling planet. Of course you're going to be affected. That's a given right there. But of course, planets that are in your sign are also interacting with Venus while it's retrograde. So that does not help the situation. What also does not help the situation once we get to about, we're looking at Tuesday here, I do believe. Yes, Tuesday into Wednesday, when this challenge starts to get a little bit bigger as the moon moves into Scorpio. So it's literally like everything is just kind of sort of happening at once, and you happen to be there and get sucked into it, if that makes sense. Unpleasant, unfun. Nobody wants to deal with it. Wash your hands of it, walk away. I feel like this is it may play out in the type of situation to where how do I want to say this? This doesn't directly involve you. Maybe it directly involves people that directly involve you, but it doesn't directly involve you. So I feel like somebody's trying to suck you into drama that just isn't yours, if that makes sense. The door just opened mysteriously all by itself. Ooh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's the kitty cat coming in. So basically, I feel like you're dodging bullets here. And I also see that somebody is really going to try hard to really push that to make you feel that it is your responsibility or that you feel like you have to react to it. I know it's hard. I know it's so hard. But you don't always have to, unless you're putting your shit kickers on and putting that person in their place. I'm just saying. Shut them up. That's what I mean. Not this way. This way. You don't always have to go this way because your intellect is actually your most powerful tool, and your way with words is your most powerful tool also. So think about that, especially because Mercury is in conjunction with Venus at this time. So they're both really working together in this challenge. Okay. But outside of that, we still continue to have Uranus's grand sextile with Pluto and Neptune, Uranus, and Jupiter in your sign, still focused on money, still focused on making that money, growing that capital, whatever. And of course, Neptune is still focused on your day-to-day schedule. So I feel like, well, here's a lesson in life that I think that we all need to learn. We get easily distracted by things that are not important. And we put our important things on the back burner to help other people with their crap. And then we wind up not taking care of what we need to take care of. And we can blame them, we can do all kinds of stuff, but it always comes down to the choices that you make. And this time, I really feel that you're going to make the choice to keep on track with your goals. Okay. Even though it's a struggle to get sucked in sometimes. I know, I get it. Um, we also have Jupiter's trine with Mars, which is kind of funny to me because in a way, it's like, let's throw a breath of fresh air into this nonsense, but it's Mars. Mars is not really known for fresh air. Mars is actually more of an aggressive sort of influence there, and Jupiter's all about expansion. So, but I feel like in terms of your money goals, I feel what this is saying is there's a masculine influence around an individual or a person that is really influencing these goals. So either that can be interpreted in a couple of ways. One, that the person that you go to help you with this situation is a male or has a very masculine energy. We have to be sort of PC these days. Or that the person you've been talking to has just been so unproductive that you've decided to cut the ties with that. Either way, it's a good thing. So that's what I have for you this week, Darcy. And I'm going to pause for just a second and shut a door. Okay, we are moving on to Kendra. I slept wrong on my shoulder last night, and I feel the need to share this information with you, not the pain. So don't pick up on it. I did just have somebody work on it, and it does feel much better. But right as I was getting into this, it started to really kind of, show itself a little bit. And I feel like looking back on last week, which actually was just a few days ago with this recording. So, but we're looking back on last week and all of the things that took place last week. I feel like, of course, there's new things, but it's not quite as dramatic, for lack of a better way of saying it. We still have Uranus and Pluto in Taurus. In terms of Venus going retrograde right at the beginning of the week on Sunday, obviously that's going to affect you because Venus is Taurus's ruling planet. So there's almost like a creative block to it in a way. There's a lot of acceptance of certain things. I think a lot of obstacles or blocks that we put up around love specifically are going to come up. So self-love as well, which is a really important thing. So I feel like I want to tell you that the more you're aware of it and the more you're kind of working through it, the easier it's going to be for you, I guess. But also Uranus is in a challenge with Venus as it's going retrograde, and Mercury, because they're really kind of closely in conjunction with each other. And I feel like because everything is focused on money for you, this challenge really, basically, this challenge is what you just went through this week or last week, and it is going to continue. But I don't feel like it's going to continue in an overly as aggressive of a way as it did last week. And what's actually kind of funny about that is Jupiter and Jupiter's trine with Mars. Mars is an aggressive energy, but we're talking about a completely different influence here. We're talking about something that's very positive and very helpful, and the two work together for a common goal. And so what's interesting to me about this is that I feel like your business should be the Venus, the creativity, and the Amazon should be the Mars, the aggression. But in this, they're flipped. And I think that's what I need to tell you is to stop, change the way you look at, flip the way you look at them, because even if your business is I want to say a creative thing, is more spiritual. Okay. It's less corporate and demanding. It's more spiritual. It's more about growth and success, right? And so you would associate that with Venus, and you would associate a corporate bunch of a-holes, for lack of a better way to say it, as Mars. But if you switch the way you look at them and make them the other one, it puts the right energy where it needs to be. So it's slowing down Amazon because it's retrograde, and it's projecting what you're doing here. And Mars is a very good energy to be going towards money growth. It's aggressive money growth, which you need in order to get a really good start on that, if that makes sense. So, I mean, honestly, all I can say is things are happening. I can see it as you're letting go, moving on, and boom, 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 pick that up. Oh, wait, I didn't want to pick that up, put it back down. It's so cool to watch on the outside. I'm sure it sucks on the inside, but it is so cool to watch from the outside. I'm just saying, because you're just nailing it. You're just nailing it. And I love it. I love that I get to be a part of it. I think that's awesome. So the big day, I think, where there's going to be a challenge is going to be around the moon coming into Scorpio, which is about Tuesday, Wednesday specifically. The moon moves into opposition with Uranus and Jupiter, and there's kind of, in a way, the moon's focus is sort of taking you backwards, but taking you backwards in terms of who you were versus who you are now, and who you were back then, who you wanted to be now versus who you are now. So it's more like a self-exploration. And I feel like this is going to come up around standing up and having to speak your truth. And this is not like it's going to take you a week to self-explore either. If this happens like super quick and you're like, wait a minute, no, that was me before, and this is me now, and screw that. This is how we're going to do this. You are taking control of the situation. That's what I'm seeing in this. Which is also awesome. So high five, lady, you're doing it. And that is what I have for you, Kendra. We are going to move to Jeannette. Jeannette. I don't know why I'm singing your name, Jeannette. Okay. That was an older lady who just wanted to come in and give you that. Okay. I'm clearly like wide open right now. Okay. What do we got going on in Gemini? Well, no planets in Gemini. So it's so funny to me. There's just a lot of chaos going on in the planets, and signs like Aries, Sagittarius, Gemini, the ones that normally like to come in and stir the pot, just sitting back on the sidelines going, yeah, well, it sucks for you. It's kind of cool. Obviously, it doesn't not affect you. Venus going retrograde in Leo could be just because you don't have planets that interact with it or don't interact with it. It does, because these things that come up are things that need to be addressed. We need to work on them or deal with them, or what have you, I guess. So with that being said, we still have this influence of Vespa in your sign. Focus is on long-term goals, but Vespa moves into like a cusp, bringing finances into the focus for you this week, which I mean is duh, you're still waiting on stuff. Honestly, I think I really do see the end of this approaching in the next few weeks. Not the end where you get the money, but the end with the doctor's office having a hard time filing that paperwork. You are way too patient. I mean, I would be in there cracking skull and in jail, of course. Yes, in jail. Or literally just sitting there in the waiting room until somebody did something. You might need to do that. I'm just saying. Vespa is this sort of I want to be back home influence. I see it in your mind, and it's so funny. It's so funny. Okay. No, but I see it. I see you wanting to live in both places. I see it. You want to live over here, you want to live over there, but I actually want to live near your grandkids. But it's really hard, to do that when they have to move around a lot. Um, I just laugh because I feel the same way. I'm like, I just need one in both places. It would just make my life more convenient, and then just go back and forth, right? That's anyways, that's why we're actually kind of planning that possibility just in the last 24 hours. It's a really funny coincidence to me. Anyways, at the same time, you've always been kind of a gypsy. And this is like a lot of I'm stuck like this forever, if that makes sense. And this isn't directed at Mario, and it's not directed at the house. It's not even directed at where you live. Um, obviously you want to settle down, but the gypsy part of you is still like, but we're not ready yet. Um, I mean, seriously, you're already planning a trip in some way in your head right now, literally, because that is how you deal with it, and you can't deal with it in that way. This lady that was singing, gosh, she's got such a sweet, sweet, sweet energy, but you did not mess with her or argue with her or contradict her. Wow. Okay. Anyways, she says, she's showing me you as a little girl reading something, seeing a butterfly going whoop and running off. It's like so easily distracted by something that you deem cool in the moment, which is fine. She says it's hard, but you have to learn to stay focused a little bit longer. She says just a little bit longer next time, a little bit longer next time. Okay. You need to be grounding more also every day, every time you get in your car. Really important every time you get in your car, because you'll be in the bubble when you get out of the car and back into the car, but you put the whole bubble around the car. It's sort of, if you take a few minutes before you drive, it'll help with the anxiety of that, if that makes sense. And that is what I have for you, Jeannette. You're awesome. Yeah, let's just you and me go and have all of our little houses and all over these different places in the world. That would be great. Hey, you want to meet up in Milan? Okay, see you there. Would be awesome. Okay. Moving on to Connie. Oh, my Leos. Oh, my Leos. My heart goes out to my Leo. That's the second time I've sang, and I'm not really good at it. So I'm really not making the situation any better for you guys. I'm sorry. So, yes, Sunday, kick off the whole week, Sunday, with Venus going retrograde and the sun coming into Leo at the same time. They are on opposite ends, which is actually not great when you think about it, because they're interacting with different planets, and instead of intensifying each other and it's something that's already there, it's adding more to what we have going on. So because there's a lot, watch the Leo horoscopes and then come back and watch this recording. I'm going to go into specifics which jump out at me for you. Luckily the moon was here last week, so we're not dealing with that this week, which is good. Because any more emotional influences would just make this a lot more difficult. I want to talk about the sun coming into Leo as it comes into Leo in opposition with Pluto, which is right on the cusp of Aquarius and Capricorn. Pluto is retrograde. So Pluto's all about our ability to change or transform a situation or have power over a situation. And the sun is where we shine. And the sun's influence in where we shine is on career, while Pluto's is at home. I feel like, and this is going to go on pretty much all week long. Let me double check. Yes, it is going to go on all week long. And it's going to be intensified by a little bit about... Oh, no, I know it's over here, isn't it? The damn Sagittarians. Oh, no, that's not you. Never mind. Scratch that. Cancel that. That's not you. That's somebody else. You don't have to take that responsibility if you don't want to. Okay, so anyways, back to this opposition here. I feel like it's kind of interesting how Pluto's inability to change a situation or transform the situation or even have power over the situation seems to prevent your being able to shine in your career. It's like everything we've been talking about for the past, I don't even know how many years anymore, I lost count. It's literally that, right? And so I feel like one of two things could be happening. One, there's a little bit more light on, like, that situation becomes a little bit louder. There's more going on there. It also doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing. It just could be that there's more opportunities for you to have these interactions, but maybe change the course of the interaction instead of thinking that you can't change it, if that makes sense. The other thing is Mercury and Venus are going into conjunction with each other, and both of them are oh, this is you. I'm sorry. I was hoping it wasn't you, but it is you, just different planet. Both of them are in opposition with Saturn, and about Friday, the moon moves in to make this a much bigger challenge for that one day, adding a little Sagittarius energy into it, which is, well, it's just not always the best kind of energy to use. But again, this is all about your support system, whether they are there to support you, whether they're not there to support you. Honestly, it's all of them. We'll just say it. It's everybody. It's like everybody's involved, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying there's a specific thing that everybody's involved in. It's more like within the situation, everything that's been bothering you about everybody sort of comes to a head around that time because of the moon's influence. And the moon is bringing this past emotional crap into the situation, which doesn't help. So this, I mean, literally, I'm looking at what we've been talking about ever since we met happening with the planets right now. And to me, I could look at that and go, oh my God, that's such a pain in the ass for her. But I also see how many opportunities you have in these situations to change the conversation with changing your reaction to the conversation, if that makes sense. So, but yes, it is still a pain in the ass. You're absolutely right. And in terms of work, this Pluto Sun opposition thing is making it very, very, very clear that your family isn't getting in the way of you work, of you shining in your career or things being a little bit better. It is you focusing on that that's getting in the way. So it's almost like I can see Frankie looking at you and going, okay, okay, did you hear me? Okay. And she's not yelling at you because you're not listening, but she's yelling at you because you're not listening, if that makes any sense at all in Frankie language. Let me take a look. See, there is some good news. Okay, there is some good news, and specifically on that same day, actually, that bigger challenge comes in, the moon comes in, creates all this havoc. It also lines up with the sun in a very helpful and powerful way, and the sun also lines up with Neptune in the same way. It is a trine. It's very damn near, and probably will be at some point that day, a grand trine, which is all of those elements working together. And the elements in question, of course, are your fire signs. And when you need a little bit extra energy, a little bit extra oomph, a little bit extra help, all you gotta do is ask. Frankie's is standing there, and your grandma's standing there, Annie and Andy are standing there, the doggies are standing there, they're all standing there, and they're like, all you need to do is ask. And this blonde lady that I picked up on only once, she's always sitting at a desk. She's just like, I'm here too. Don't forget me. Seattle, something about Seattle, maybe. Anyways, all of this is your energy. It's your fire moving you in the right direction. And honestly, think about it this way. When your brain goes to that, I'm all alone and I have nobody, think of those family members that love you just getting so offended because they're standing right in front of you and they're trying and they're not really offended and they're always going to forgive you. Okay. I've told all of my family members to F off. I don't know how many times, trust me. They do still love me. Sometimes they don't like me, but that's okay. So same for you. And that is what I have for you, Connie. Good luck. I'm with you, I swear. And I'm moving on to Jenny, also a Leo. Oh, my poor Leos. Oh, I do. I really do feel bad. I feel bad for myself, though, too, because, I'm going to get yanked into it at some point, but I feel worse for you guys. Actually, I'm making this sound way more horrible than I should be making it sound. But I think that the first couple of weeks of this, especially with the way the planets are lining up around it and how things are sort of coincidentally happening all at the same time, it is a big deal. And when we have these big lessons, it is very difficult. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy, and we're like, there's no way I'm gonna make it through this. There's a lot of layers to it. And because of what's going on astrologically, Venus going retrograde on Sunday, just as the sun is coming into Leo at the same time, Venus and Mercury being in conjunction with each other, which means that every single time that there is a challenge with another planet, it's with both of them. Mercury is a trickster sometimes when he's not retrograde. It's so, because it is all about communication. And I want to start specifically for you with this opposition between Saturn and Venus and Mercury that is taking place pretty much all week. On Friday, the moon moves in to make this a much bigger challenge for a day, and then it leaves, and I'll get into the bigger challenge in a minute. But the opposition really has to do with the people you love and the reciprocation of that love with a Venus retrograde in it. Go figure, right? First of all, Saturn is retrograde. So of course, what we know, we've been keeping up with the horoscopes, is that Saturn's retrograde means we're not taking on responsibilities that we should be because they're ours, or that we're taking on responsibilities that don't belong to us because they were given to us. And I feel that for you, we're going more towards the letting go of responsibilities that aren't yours, specifically because with Mercury and Venus influencing those that love you back, or the kind of love that you're getting back, it's almost like, and I'm not saying it's exactly like this for you, but it's very, very close. The feeling that I get is that you love somebody and you've always hoped that things would be better with them, and then all of a sudden the rose-colored glasses come off and you realize that this is what you get. And if you want to continue a relationship with this individual, you have to accept that this is what you get, which you can do, but then you can't hope for any kind of change or anything else to happen. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. Okay. It's just an acceptance and release. And that is, I think, accepting that things are the way that they are. And I mean, really, really not just saying, yes, I accept you for who you are. No, I mean, really letting go of every bit of this is how I want it to be. And that is a hard thing to do. But the more you do it, the freer it becomes, the less it's emotionally dragging you down. The less it feels like it's ruling your life or keeping you in a situation where you can't change, if that makes sense. And I do see this around a relationship, and I do see this really kind of blowing up, I guess, on Friday with that moon coming in with to make this a much bigger challenge. And the moon is in Sagittarius. So of course, Sagittarius is kind of a violent energy to begin with. You know, we don't really like the moon, you know, coming in with an influence quite that fiery. Okay. At the same time, we're talking about releasing this sort of anger from past situations. And that's what's behind these rose-colored glasses coming off. It's the realization that, wait a minute, I have been there, done that, wrote the book on it. Why am I doing it again? Kind of a feeling. The other thing, the other thing that I want to bring up is the sun coming into Leo. Sun's focus is on career, and this is where you shine. This is your time in terms of career growth, in terms of making your decisions on what you want to do next, in terms of taking those next steps to be the awesome Jenny we all know she is, and even more awesome than she was yesterday, in opposition with Pluto, which is retrograde, which feels like we can't make changes to anything. We don't have the power to do this and that and the other thing. And the Jenny that's like, I'm coming in to take over the world, all of a sudden starts getting just a little less motivated. Because, well, if I don't have the power to change it, why even try, right? Occasionally, I know that comes in, and yeah, why try? Because you can, basically. I don't feel that that comes up a lot for you, but I feel like everything that's going on around you is going to maybe amplify old mindsets that you had put away. And it's like everything that you're going through sort of flings the drawers open and all the mindsets go and they all stick to you, and all of a sudden, and you have to go, I thought I put you in the drawer, and throw it back. Okay. That's what I have for you, Jenny, and lots of hugs. I love you. I love you. Um, okay. Where am I? Where am I? Who am I? Moving on to Linda. Oh, it's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting, like right off the bat for you guys this week. Well, actually, I lied. It's still interesting, of course. And it's actually, this is really going to be this way pretty much all week long. Not necessarily a bad thing, though. When you look at it, we're going to look at Mars, which is in Virgo this week, in opposition with Saturn, which is retrograde. Mars influencing those that love you or those that support you, and Saturn's influence on those you love. Now, with Saturn in retrograde focused on those you love, my first instinct is to go on, don't take responsibility for something that is not your responsibility, if that makes sense. On the flip side of that, though, I feel like this could play out as somebody trying to put a responsibility on you that does not belong to you. And I feel a lot of triggers coming up around that for you. And with, of course, with Mars influence, it can get a little angry. Yes, you can try and avoid that, though, if you can. That would be good. As diplomatic as possible would be good. It would be easier if everybody was like us, but I suppose it would be less interesting. So, you know. I also want to say that Mars is in a trine with Pluto, and Pluto is focused on finances. It's all about money growth. It's all about growing that money. It's all about dealing with your money challenges or difficulties. And because of the fact that it's Mars there, it's a masculine influence. So as much as I remember the last time we talked, there being challenges with the young man who's helping you with your finances, I feel that he will put just as much energy into helping you resolve those issues as well. Because, and you'll see this after it's all said and done, he really does love you. The boy really does love you. I think he might be a little afraid of you every now and then, but he really does have a lot of love for you. You will probably feel just a tiny little bit of an influence of the moon early hours on Sunday, because by noon it's out. By noon Pacific time, it's out of Virgo. So there probably will still be a little bit of a residual influence, if you will, coming from the day before, maybe into the next morning, if that makes sense. So honestly, I feel like this week, both of these aspects with that Mars is in right now, both of them are going to continue all week long. What I do have, though, is some interesting stuff that is taking place with the moon in terms of its movements around. And specifically, we're looking at Sunday. What is that? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the moon's sextile with Mars. So the moon is bringing some past ideas into this sort of transition from one financial position to the other, if that makes sense. So Okay. I see like a disagreement. One wants to bring in older policies, one wants to bring in all newer policies. The two should be able to blend together. So there's a compromise rather than a discussion over which way would work better, in case that comes up. And also I know there's one more. Okay, I lied. There isn't one more. And that's about midweek or so. So honestly, I see you on the path to where you need to be. And I'm also seeing that as you're going, stuff is falling off of you. And I feel like a lot of these are burdens, if that makes sense. And that includes like family burdens. That includes financial burdens, that includes work burdens, that includes people burdens, it's a lot of things. So that's what I have for you. And I will probably talk to you shortly after you watch this video. And I'm going to move on to my little Matalyn. So we continue to have Mars in Virgo. Oh. We continue to have Mars in Virgo, and Mars continues to be in opposition with Saturn, which is retrograde. Saturn is still pointing towards the direction of those you love, while Mercury and Venus are focused on those that love and support you. And, I deal with so many adult people who are like, I'm their kid. They should support me, right? Like, these are not people like your parents. Okay. Your parents would never do this, but like I know one lady who's just like, isn't it a parent's job to support their kid, with this and that and the other thing? I mean, a lot of parents don't support they're not very supportive of their kids. Okay. For various different reasons. Your parents would never be in that situation where they would favor somebody else's kid over theirs, which is ultimately what she was doing. But I've also learned that parents are people too. And that was really a hard lesson for me, actually, because I didn't want to see my parents as people. And granted, I knew what my dad was when I met him. I knew about the biker mentality. I knew about the drugs. I knew about all the other disgusting stuff that he did, as he was growing up, because he was just a wild young dude doing what dudes do. Okay. So I knew that, and yet I still put this thing in my head where I put them up on that pedestal and they're the perfect people, right? At some point in our lives, we all lose that image. And it's very difficult to adjust to the reality of the image, which is that our parents, oddly enough, are just people like all the other people, right? And they're kind of screwed up. Everybody is kind of screwed up. So, two things with that. Okay. First of all, always remember this. Okay. Anytime you're looking at other people and going, oh my God, I wish I had your family, or I wish I had your this, or I wish I had your that, this person has the perfect everything. Remember that you are only seeing a blip, because a lot of your blips looked pretty good too, right? And a lot of the blips that you have of your parents looked pretty good, right? And just because sometimes there are challenges, it does not mean that won't ever be good blips again. I hope that makes sense. Yes, it's a huge adjustment to move into adulthood. I know I've been talking about it for like a year. Guess what? You're going to keep adjusting for the next like 5 years, seriously, because of all these different things. And you're going to be like, holy fuck, I didn't know I had to do that, right? Nobody told me that this was this difficult. I am telling you. But you just take them one thing at a time, as much as you possibly can. And remember that when you are in need of support and it's not right in front of you for whatever reason, or it is, but it's not being supportive right now, you can always expand out because you've got a support system that's massive, right? Which is awesome. I also am seeing for you this week. Oh, let me talk about this here. Mars is in a trine with Jupiter, and Jupiter is focused on money. And this is like the last few days that Jupiter is focused on money. We want to suck that energy up because Jupiter is all about growth and expansion. Sometimes it's about greed. It depends, if it's retrograde or not. But right now, Jupiter's influence is all about money and making money and continuing to grow that income, if that makes sense. And then I heard a cat at my chair. Apparently I was wrong. So anyways, Mars energy going into that is really useful right now. If you are planning on adding some hours, adding a second job, adding a side gig. I just talked to a lady today and she said that I can't remember who she said it was, but the gentleman said you should always have multiple streams of income. And I firmly believe that. Always have multiple streams of income. You don't need to find 5 right now. Just keep your eyes out for the next stream of income, because if you've got multiple streams of income, you always have money coming in. So that's what I have for you, darling. Mwah, I love you. And I am going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little breaky break and then I'm going to come back in just a few minutes, but it'll seem like a split second. Okay, we're moving on to Glennis. How the heck are you, Glennis? Okay, so yes, we have a Venus retrograde, and no, generally there isn't any planets in Libra, although we are kicking off the week with Moon in Libra, because, you guys got to shake things up every now and then. I mean, come on, you guys should get a turn to stir the pot every once in a while, right? And the interaction with the Moon and Venus, really not a whole lot. Actually, positive reactions only. Nothing negative. So that's good. But will you be affected by the Venus retrograde? Absolutely. It's your ruling planet. So unfortunately, for Tauruses and Libras alike, you probably will be feeling the effects of your ruling planet being just a little bit backwards. Not quite as extensively as if it was in your sign, but you probably will still feel the effects of it nonetheless. We are going to kick off the week with the moon in Libra. And I feel like the progression from Sunday into Monday, or in your case, Monday into Tuesday. I forgot. I just remembered we got to add a day for you. Or make it the next day or whatever. Monday into Tuesday for you. The moon kind of takes this progress when it goes through your sign, where the focus is on like inner trauma stuff. So very deep emotional stuff. And you may feel that kind of stuff is just sort of coming up, or for me, it feels like you know, I'm just kind of off, or my body is tired, and then something happens, and then the whoosh happens, and then I get the trigger, and then I spend the rest of the day trying to understand it and put it away, if that makes sense. So moving into the next day, you'll find that, at least I found, that when I go through something like that, if I take the time, as difficult and uncomfortable as it is, if I take the time to work through my understanding of it, to separate the inner child need for that, and, you know, give it to the inner child to do whatever work it is that you do when you work through your triggers, the next day is still tiring, but it doesn't feel like you're still carrying this big giant thing around. It's more like, I just need to rest and put my feet up today, or I need an extra nap today, or, you know, sometimes it affects the stomach area, which means whatever decides to come out the next day also, which can be very unpleasant. We don't need to really talk about it. So those things do come up the next day, and it doesn't mean that you didn't do a good job. It means that your body is releasing it. Now, if you're still in pain, or you're constipated, or you have a headache, then you're still holding onto it, and you need to take the time to release it. So it takes literally, it can be hours, it can be days, it could be months, it could be years, right? We both know that. Once the moon moves out of your sign, things do calm down a little bit. The moon is in a sextile with Venus as well as Mercury as we get into Tuesday. Basically, on her way out, she moves into this sort of a very helpful position, actually, when it, you know, when it feels like you need some emotional support, and they're kind of there to lend you a helping hand, if that makes sense. The moon square with Pluto, on the other hand, as she leaves, and actually it's a T square with Pluto and the sun. This is kind of a big challenge. So it's a good thing you got a helping hand there for that, because Pluto and the sun's house is where you shine, and it's focused on career. Pluto's house is focused on your home, your environment, and it's retrograde. So it feels like you have no control over a situation, or you can't change a situation. And it's just that the element of the moon coming into play into this just sort of bumps up the emotions around it, where maybe normally it wouldn't bump them up quite that extreme, if that makes sense. So give yourself a little bit extra space and patience, definitely a little extra time to verbally react, just to make sure that whatever comes out of your mouth is helpful to the situation, and not, some of us just have to work a little bit harder on that sometimes. Be aware of it. Once you get past the moon being in your sign, things do calm down just a little bit, so it's not quite so crazy. Focus is on you, or focus is on self, I should say, for the rest of the week. And I feel like this is a good time to just, since you're gone through an emotional release at the beginning of the week anyways, this is just a good time to check in with yourself and make sure that there's nothing else that's still hanging on with that. And I also, one of the things that I love to do when I go through something like that is I take what I call a cleansing shower, or a bath. I'm a bath person, really, but sometimes I gravitate towards the shower on purpose, because I want the water and the soap to clean all that stuff off of me, like everything that I just went through. And I'm visually cleaning from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, just scrubbing all of it away. And then watching it go down the drain is like so incredibly satisfying. So if you want to choose to use that, of course you can. If you have something that works better for you, of course, obviously use that, I think that we all have to personalize our, what's the word I'm looking for here? Our experience has to be personalized to us in order for it to work for us. So, but if you're looking for something like that. it is out there. So I also just want to say that I keep seeing this little angel. It's a little girl, but she looks like a little angel. Like she's literally dressed like a little angel. She's adorable, like a cheruby, beautiful doll of a child. And I don't know why I'm seeing this. I want to say she's in spirit. She doesn't say much, but she does kiss you on the cheek from time to time, just in case you feel these little, almost like butterfly kisses. And that is what I have for you, my friend. And I'm moving on to Regina. Regina. Okay, so we got some action going on this week. Let me tell you. I'm going to move over here to Tuesday. So Libra, we're just, if you're on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio, that means that this is just going to be 3 days longer for you. Okay, because it goes through the moon, kicks off right at the beginning of Libra and goes all the way through Libra and Scorpio. Don't even think it hits Capricorn by the end of the week. So basically most of the week is going to be the moon in those two signs. Venus is going retrograde in Leo on Sunday, right at the same time the sun is moving into Leo right on Sunday. That the sun in Leo doesn't affect you quite so much. Venus going retrograde absolutely will, because it's Libra's ruling planet. So if you're on the cusp of both signs and you're getting the influences from both signs, that does indicate that there is a possibility that you're going to feel some of that Libra imbalance there just a little bit. And of course, the moon's going to come in and really rough that up. And really, we're roughing it up on Tuesday more than anything, as the moon's coming out of Libra and into Scorpio, because it moves into a T-square with the sun in Leo and Pluto, which is in opposition of it. Pluto is retrograde and focused on the home, whereas the sun is focused on career. So with Pluto being retrograde, it kind of feels like we have no power to change things in the home. I know you said something about that recently. It's yours, but it's not yours. You still have all the stuff there. It's like, this whole not having time because you're working all the time, but you really want to get these things done. And the moon coming in just sort of makes this whole thing a really emotional experience. Like, I'm so done living with this nightmare, if that makes sense. I just have to say this, okay? First of all, you got to stop looking at it as I want it all done, okay? Every day you can take 20 minutes, you can take 40 minutes, you can take a whole hour if you have it, just to go through like one box of crap and get rid of it. And I think that too many times, like I'm very much like that too. I'm so focused on the end goal that I don't want to do the work who wants to do the work in the middle, right? If I could just mentally project things happening, oh my God, I get so much done. But seriously, like it really does take like doing that little bit of a time, and eventually it gets better. And I feel like you started that and kind of stopped and just need to get back into it. And I feel like the moon coming in and just, you just just sort of, kind of lights a fire in your butt to get things going, if that makes sense. As we move into Wednesday, the moon moves into an opposition with Uranus and Jupiter, which are both focused on finances, whereas the moon is focused on the past. So this brings a financial problem up for you, which I know that you are looking forward to. Again, because the moon is involved here, this could be something that sounds like you should have an emotional reaction to it, but when you really sit down and understand the nitty-gritty, it's not as bad as you think, if that makes sense. So basically emotionally reacting to it just expended energy that you could have used somewhere else, if that makes sense. It's when we get into Thursday that things really start to heat up, as we continue in that opposition with Uranus, which is still focused on money. But this turns into a T-square when the moon becomes squared with Venus and Mercury. Stupid brain. Which are in conjunction with each other, like perfect conjunction with each other. So now we're looking at this in another way, right? As usual, as it's always happened, here I am dealing with this situation with no help from anybody else, right? I feel like us human beings expend so much energy on that complaint. And I've started to see where I do that, obviously, but I've also started to see that as I'm doing it, and as I'm seeing other people doing it and going, that just sounds vile every time I hear it. Like, who are you? The center of the universe? And then I catch myself doing it, and it's like, oh my God, I'm not the center of the universe either. I mean, I like to believe that I am, but we all know the truth. The sun is, okay? None of us are, right? And if we were in the center of the universe, we'd be dead. So we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So the bottom line here is that with every lesson, we are given the people that are supposed to help us with it, or we are not given the people because this is our lesson, not theirs, if that makes sense. Does it make it less annoying that you're doing it by yourself? No. But for me, making that decision kind of helps me to release my attachment to it, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying that. Finally, by the weekend, Friday and Saturday, things calm down for you, and you can like relax and shit, which is really cool. My only concern is throughout all of this, if past stuff comes up, good to monitor how much time you're spending mulling that over, if that makes sense. We all do it. Because, and I say put a time limit on it because there's something wrong with doing that. What's wrong is it taking up your whole life, and then it's taking up your motivation to be productive now. And if you look back 5 years from now, you're going to wish that didn't happen. So that's what I have for you, Regina. No Tool today. Sorry. There's no cool bands in today, I'm afraid. Moving on to Theresa. Yes, Theresa. Hi, Theresa. So we have some moon action in Scorpio, and it is some pretty heavy moon action in Scorpio. I am going to go into, yes, Venus is going retrograde in Leo on Sunday, which, yes, in some ways there is going to be some interaction there with the moon, not necessarily in bad ways though, because of where it's sitting in Leo, which is good. Well, maybe a little bit. Actually, I just lied to you. It is going to interact pretty heavily once we get into Thursday. So let's just start at the beginning so that I can actually just pay attention to what I'm saying and not just make stuff up. Okay. Although it does feel like that's what I do. The moon coming into your sign on Tuesday is coming into your sign in a T-square with Pluto and the sun. It's kind of a weird opposition between these two planets, because the sun's house is where you shine, which is focused on your career currently. Pluto's focus is on the home, and it's retrograde. So it feels like you can't make changes there, or you're stuck there, or something is going on that is preventing you from reaching the success that you're reaching for, if that makes sense. So that could be a lot of different things. You have more than one person that is going through major health issues right now. You got everything that's going on with your mom. Where the moon comes into play in this is, of course, it brings it to an emotional place, and it also puts you in the middle. It's like you're literally standing on both sides, trying to manage your career and trying to manage what's going on at home, and you just can't do it anymore. You just literally, it all comes to a head, and you're like, that's it, I can't do it anymore. And that's okay. Take a step back, give yourself some space, do what you need to do. This is a lot to ask of anybody. You did not go out and say, I think I want things, I want my career to make it easy for me to handle everything at home. That didn't happen, right? And I'm not saying you're getting punished for that. I'm saying that because you made that choice, which is fine, you also need to give yourself more space, more time to decompress, to unplug, to meditate, to whatever, because you're holding all of it here and it hurts. It hurts. As we move into Wednesday, the moon moves into an opposition with Pluto and Uranus. Pluto and Uranus are focused on finances. Pluto's all about expansion and growth of finances. To have the moon coming in and bringing this sort of past influence of challenge, it's like we've been here before, or even the fear of going back to a place where you were before, if that makes sense. So for example, financially, the place you were right before you got this job. That also plays into, well, let me put it this way. I feel like for you, this moon thing is literally going to be played out as like a panic mode thing. Like the things are happening around you and you're almost going into a mini panic, trying to organize your time around this scenario. And I just don't feel like you can 100% do that, if that makes sense. So whatever this thing is, it seems like it's getting in the way of you making money, and that's going to intensify into Thursday as that becomes a T-square as the moon and Uranus line up with Mercury and that retrograde Venus right there. So honestly, are you going to be affected by the Venus retrograde? Yes, because it's in another fixed sign. So anytime that there is a planet coming into your sign, it is going to affect you. Luckily, for a couple of days out of the month, because it's the moon right now, and there are no planets that are going to be coming into Scorpio long term until after that it ends in the beginning of September. So you could say on that, but everybody's affected, because our own love issues are coming up and being thrown in our laps for us to deal with, right? Those times where we're like, how comes nobody's here to help me, you know? And you have to sit there and go, okay, I'm not the center of the universe, so nobody owes me anything, right? And then you also have to look at whether or not you asked for it or not. So a lot of times we don't ask, we just expect that somebody's going to magically show up, right? And sometimes they do. I think that's why it screws us up. Anyways, I feel like it's highly possible that you're trying to juggle a lot at once. Maybe you're trying to juggle work and what's going on at home at the same time. And I feel like you're going to get to a point really quick where you realize that you really need to just separate from one and pay attention to the other, if that makes sense, because it might get to the point where it's so intense that it needs your full attention, for lack of a better way of saying that. Because I don't feel like this is just one thing either. I feel it's a couple of different things. It could be around your mom, it could be around your husband, but it could be around your boys too. It doesn't have to be a health thing. to be something that somebody is going through, if that makes sense. So you could be on the other side of the country and your boy is going through something difficult and you're struggling with the fact that you're not there for him, kind of a thing. So yeah, it's a pretty intense, honestly, it's pretty intense few days with the moon being present in your sign. Luckily, by the Friday and by the weekend, she moves on and we cannot deal with that for another month, which would be really cool. Focus is on the past though, so do be aware of past things or past mindsets or things that you thought maybe you had worked through or eliminated coming back, because they do always come back in these situations. And we have to go, wait a minute, I threw you in the box. You're supposed to stay in the box. So, it just becomes easier to do that. It doesn't mean that they go away, if that makes sense. And that worry thing is one of those things. So that's what I have for you, Theresa. And I am going to move on to Jillian. So we have like 3 days of crazy intenseness with the moon coming through Scorpio. And part of what makes it crazy intense is, well, where other planets are sitting, number one. And also we have this Venus retrograde, which is literally like, beginning of the week, Sunday, boom, Venus goes retrograde. So it happens like right off the bat, right? And because it's in a sign that is also a fixed sign like Scorpio, you will have to deal with it in challenging ways every so often. But honestly, it affects everybody. Every time a planet goes retrograde, it affects everybody. It just affects everybody differently, if that makes sense. So I'm really going to focus your reading mainly on when the moon is in Scorpio, because this is where it's really intense. The rest of the time, it just sort of kind of is what it is. And we're going to start on Tuesday as the moon is coming into Scorpio on Tuesday. It comes into Scorpio in a T-square, which is a pretty big challenge, 3 different planets. There's an opposition between the sun and Pluto. The moon comes in and sort of squares both of them. So it becomes a triangle, which is a little bit of a challenge, right? The sun's focus is on career. Pluto's focus is on the home. Pluto is retrograde, so it kind of feels like you can't change, or you don't have power to change that situation, which is kind of true, actually. And then the moon's placement is like right on self. It's like me. It's like who I am and what I'm dealing with. And I actually feel like there's like drama going on at home and there's drama going on at work. And this is the point where you go, you know what? I am fed up with both of you. Okay. I can't take it no more. Right. Literally done. Right. And it's not that they have to stop. Okay. It's that you decide to walk away from it, that you're not going to be a part of it, that you're not going to, what's the word I'm looking for? That you're not going to interact or get involved or any of that. It's kind of like what just happened recently with your mom and your sister. You tried to tell them not to do it because it was immature, but they wouldn't listen. And this situation keeps playing out like all over the place. It took me years to realize, darling, why say anything? If they don't want to know, if they don't want to learn, if they don't want to change, that's on them. Let them be that way, but you don't have to deal with it either. So you don't have to sit there and listen to it all the time. Those are your boundaries. Okay. When we get into Wednesday, the moon moves into opposition with Jupiter and Uranus. How could we forget that? Uranus is, I didn't forget. It's just my brain not working. Moon's opposition with Jupiter and Uranus. Now, Jupiter and Uranus are focused on finances. Jupiter specifically is focused on growth of finances, making more money. And this sort of feels like being stuck in the same old situation of not being able to make the money that you need. or being in a screwed up situation that is not providing you with what you need, I am going to tell you the same thing I told your sister a long time ago. Go to school. Go to school. You can even do it online. You can work part-time and go to school. But if you want to make money, and if you want to make money to survive, you have to get an education. It's there. You can easily like slide into this or slide into that. And sometimes it works out for you, but you have a better guarantee if you get an education. As we move into Thursday, the moon moves into another T-square with Uranus still focused on finances and that retrograde Venus with Mercury as well, because they are in conjunction with each other. And I feel like in terms of the financial situation, again, this feels like it's something that you're not getting help with, that nobody is there to help you with it. You're just kind of stuck trying to figure it out. I feel like when I get myself stuck in those situations, I need to stop. I need to stop and listen, meditate, listen. Somebody is trying to help you with the situation. You're just not listening, right? And also, I'm going to share something with you that's going to be funny. And if it's seen and I get in trouble for it, I don't even care. But I got distracted. Say it again. Say it again. Say it again. Say it again. Start looking at it. Ah, 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 ah. You keep getting pulled to do something else. It might be more work. It might be farther away. It might, there's a lot more involved. You might be feeling like you're not good enough to do it. Go, just go. Find out what you need to do. Just go. Get the ball rolling. Okay. It's never as long as you think it is. Okay. That's what I have for you. Now, here's that funny story really quick, because your dad was totally involved in it. I was talking to Uncle about all this, the stuffs and everything, and I was really angry. I was really angry at your mom, because things just haven't changed, and I really had to come to terms with that and accept that that was never going to change, and that was a really hard thing for me to do after all these years. But I said at the same time, I was like, but I released it, and I released all responsibility and all control and everything, and it feels so good. But it was a hard one. She's like, and as I'm saying, she's like, I had this vision of like a sticky booger, and you like keep flicking it on your finger and it won't go away. And as I'm seeing it in my head, I was saying it, and your uncle started laughing, and I started laughing, and I'm like, somebody contributed to this conversation, because I totally visualized it before I said it. And Uncle Dave was like, duh, it was Richard. If anybody would know, not like. And I just saw it, this smile, like the Cheshire Cat smile, just like, and he was right there, and it was awesome. So I thought I would share that with you, because you would think it's funny too. And I am moving on to, I do believe that it is Peg. Okay, so Venus is going retrograde. I sound like a broken record. I've said it like 50 times, I swear. Venus is going retrograde in Leo. Okay, a Venus retrograde affects everybody, but when planets come into Sagittarius, they're actually going to line up pretty favorably with that. So yes, it's a retrograde. It does affect everybody. And you'll definitely get roped into it, even if it's a positive encounter in many ways, which we are going to have as we move into the end of the week. Actually, for Sagittarius, focus continues to be on your thought process, how you think and compute information. I loved, by the way, I hardly go on Facebook anymore, but I saw that you have a show on Blog Talk, which is awesome. funny thing, I was just thinking about that and not, kind of knocking the idea around, or at least missing having one, but not wanting the responsibility of having to be there on the same time and day every week, if that makes sense. Because it's just really difficult right now, but I did miss it. I'm glad to see actually that you're doing that. I think it's really, really cool. Focus continues to be on those ideas coming in and making sure that you organize those ideas so that they don't get, forgotten or shuffled away or anything like that. There's one in particular that's just a fantastic idea. There's just a lot of, I want to say, a lot of things, a lot of details to it, before you can actually do it, if that makes sense, which I get. But I'm also picking up that you're overthinking something. I know, it's weird that human beings would ever do that, especially Sagittarians. There's something, I don't know if it's like a decision that you have to make, or something that was presented to you or offered to you, but I feel like it's like you're stuck in your head. You got to stop that. Make a list, pros and cons. It'll make it easier for you. Let's just put it that way. Rather than trying to figure it out in here, if that makes sense. Not that there's anything wrong with your brain. It's just that when you don't take it out and make it physical, it gets stuck in some sort of vacuum thing. I don't know. It's hard for me to explain it. When we get into Friday, I kind of feel like things are just sort of trucking along this week, and then we get into Friday and the moon comes in and it's like, oh, now I get all this stuff. And as the moon's coming into your sign on Friday, it moves into a T-square with Mars and Saturn, which are in opposition with each other. And Saturn is focused on those you love, while Mars is focused, I'm sorry, yes, just Mars. Mars is focused on your support system. So it's like, I kind of look at this more as not this is what you're going through, but you're going to get sucked into it, or somebody's going to attempt to suck you into it. And this is like the same old shit. It's not something that hasn't happened before. I don't feel it's happened in a while, because you're like, I'm not doing that anymore a long time ago, but somebody is just like, oh, well, we're doing it now. First of all, there's a lot of triggers around it. You're going to want to emotionally react to it. You might even want to react in anger a little bit. And I'm not going to lie, that could be warranted in this situation, but I feel like you'll feel better if you don't, if that makes sense. We're going to put it that way. The moon's trine with the sun, though, however, is really a good, helpful aspect, because the sun's focus is on career. So you could also look at it as, I don't have time to get sucked into somebody else's bullshit, because I got too much other cool stuff going on right now that should have my time, if that makes sense. As we move into Saturday, the moon moves into a trine with Mercury and Venus, that retrograde Venus. So the moon's focus, again, we're talking about emotional thought process, and Mercury and Venus are focused on your support system. So I kind of feel like, actually, I feel like that Venus retrograde is important in some way, because it's almost like you have a hard time reacting to somebody who's demonstratively loving, if that makes sense, like overly. So to kind of hold that back makes it a little bit easier for you, if that makes sense. So somebody who can come and, just listen, rather than somebody who's going to overly gush, I guess, if that makes sense. I hope it makes more sense to you than it does to me. I think that one of the biggest things coming out of this really is that if you are stuck in your head emotionally about something, the best thing to do is to talk to somebody. I found that in my mind, things are so big. And when I start talking about it, I start to realize that it's really not that big and it could be worse. And I already feel better. And I don't even have a way of fixing it. I'm just releasing it and letting it go, if that makes sense. Finally, we do have a bit of a square between the moon and Neptune on Saturday as well. Neptune's focus is on your day-to-day schedule, so it's highly possible, obviously, this emotional situation is going to make it difficult for you to keep to any kind of scheduled plans that day. So, keep what is really important and let go of what can wait till later. You deserve to do that for yourself. So that's what I have for you, Peg. I'm going to move on to Mama Sherri. And yeah, so not a whole lot going on planet-wise until the end of the week when we have the moon coming into Sagittarius. Focus continues to be on the mind. And I feel like you've got some ideas that keep coming up, but you keep poo-pooing them because you just don't have the time, the money, the knowledge, the whatever to do it, if that makes sense. You need to start asking your guides first, me next. You're not retired. Stop saying you're retired. Your mom's like, seriously, stop saying you're retired. You're not retired. You're not done. You're also not, this is your life now. You just hide in the house. No. No. And your sister, the one who gave me the Shirley Temple song. Smile, smile, smile. Your sister is all. This isn't the first time you've done this. This isn't the first time you've had an overly emotional situation convince you that you're done professionally. She says it won't be the last either. But she also says that when you get fed up, you start to work more, if that makes sense. She's giving you bluebells. And she's saying nighty night shirts. Nighty night shirts. And I don't know what that means. Nighty night shirts. I mean, that's something that my grandma used to say to the boys. That had to do with, going to bed. Oh, she's saying, she's saying when you can't sleep, she says, I'll be your sedative. Just ask and she'll help. You'll go right to sleep. That's what that is. The moon's coming in to Sagittarius Friday and Saturday. That's going to cause some drama and it's going to cause some issues, specifically on Friday when it feels this whole situation and the way that the moon is lining up with these two planets, it feels like someone's attempting to pull you into their drama. And well, we all know how that's going to work out for them. And it's really a good idea to not let that happen anyways, because the moon's trine with Jupiter is all about making money. So yes, I'd rather spend my time making money than dealing with somebody else's bullshit too. So, it's your choice, of course, but I know which one you're going to make. Honestly, I feel like it's on. All I can say is ongoing drama. This is ongoing drama, and I'm not sure what that means. But that's what I have for you, Mama Sherri. And we are moving on to Alyssa, Pisces. We have Saturn in opposition with Venus. So who's going to be affected by that Venus retrograde? You are right off the bat, because Venus goes retrograde right at the beginning of the week on Sunday. And Saturn is in opposition with it when it happens. So you might feel a little bit of a wobble. Actually, interestingly enough, the whole healing process that you went through that we talked about last time might have had something to do with that, because I noticed a week before the retrograde happened, a lot of people were coming to me and saying very similar things, that they were it's like they were emotionally releasing and they didn't know why. So the fact that Saturn is literally in opposition with this planet probably intensified that for you a little bit, but you got through it. So good for you. So yeah, Saturn continues to be in an opposition with Venus and Mercury, which are in conjunction with each other. And also in an opposition with Mars. Sorry about this. Give me 1 second. Also in an opposition with Mars. And on Friday, the moon moves into a square with all planets, I should say. So this becomes a T-square. It becomes a pretty big challenge. Okay. So first and foremost, Saturn is focused on those you love in its retrograde. This is about making sure you take responsibility to those people that is yours, making sure you don't take on responsibilities that don't belong to you, right? In opposition with Venus, Mercury, and Mars, all focused on your support system. Now, a couple of things come out of this. First of all, we think that the people that we love are supposed to be there to support us. That doesn't always work out that way, unfortunately. Even if we have done absolutely everything that we can possibly think of for them, it doesn't always work out that way. So when you have the moon coming in at the end of the week to intensify this, it makes it a possible emotional reaction. Now, when you react emotionally and you're jumping up and down and crying and all that stuff, a lot of times it's just how the world is. It's like people don't take you seriously. It's like, oh my God, there she is crying again. If a Pisces needs, and yes, I am guilty. Stop your fucking crying. Just take it to a whole new level though. And I'm not seeing that that's what you're doing necessarily, but I am seeing that you're fed up and you've had enough. Enough is enough, kind of a thing. It's like you just need something and you're there for everybody. And, but I also feel like part of this is a bunch of past drama. Remember that emotional release that you went through? That is part of an emotional release. Also, it's taking the rose-colored glasses off and seeing it for what it is and accepting it for what it is, and then putting it in its rightful place so that it doesn't keep coming and tripping you up over and over again. The good news is the Neptune. Neptune is not having any challenges. Neptune continues to be in that grand sextile with Uranus, which is focused on making money, and Pluto, which is focused on the home. And even though it's retrograde and it's like you can't make changes, well, you don't want to make changes. You just moved like 3 times since we started working together. So you don't want to make changes. That's actually a good thing. I feel like this aspect, which is going on all week long, also is basically sort of helping you to line things up. It's saying you don't have to go anywhere anytime soon. You don't have any kind of distractions coming in. All you have to do is focus on the next steps towards whatever those goals are, if that makes sense, specifically around finances. And Neptune is like, you got plenty of time to do it. Okay, now we could go through the whole Pisces nap thing again. Take your nap, but make sure you have some time to focus on this as well. And yes, I'm pushing on your business idea because I think it's fantastic. So just make sure that you put the time into that. And nothing is going to come of it if you don't put the time into it. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'm picking up for you this week is okay. This is so weird, but I'm just gonna say it the way it is. I am seeing like, you know how you have a balloon and you don't do anything with it. It just it's one of those balloons that's got helium in it, and it's just sitting in the corner because it's there, and then over time it gets lower and it gets lower and it gets lower and it gets lower, and I feel like there's something going on where your energy is slowly going. You're like the balloon, you just keep getting more and more tired. So make sure you're grounding and bubbling often, especially during a lot of stressful stuff, especially around your family, especially around the work, all of those places. If you're around people, you should be grounding and bubbling. And the most important people to you are the ones you should be grounding and bubbling around the most, because you pick up more from them, if that makes sense. So that will help to maintain your energy so it's not quite so low. But I do see one day where you have nothing. You're just like, I could run some errands, or I could just lay in bed all day. I'm all for laying in bed all day. Don't let anybody infiltrate that day, because it is going to happen. Okay, so that's what I have for you, my darling. That's what I have for everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out and being a part of the readings here on YouTube. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. You guys, I know you got this. I will see you guys next week. Make it a great week, everybody.